All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new SIS Master by Sports Innovation Society. Every week, we speak with experts from all around the world to share about their challenges and solutions. During this session, feel free to send your questions in the Q&A section, and we will try to answer at the end of this conversation with Finn. This week, we have the honor to welcome Finbarr Kirwan, US Olympic Committee VP Summer Sports. Finn, very much welcome.
Good morning, Arno, and delighted to be here with you today. I love our conversations. I always love the opportunity to chat with you. So looking forward to a great conversation.
Thanks to you, and thanks for your time. I know it's a very challenging time now. But before we go back to what's happening now and what's the future for US Olympic Committee, I'd like to go back in time with you. I mean, you have an Irish name, you started in business, and you work on, having US athletes getting gold medals. That's quite unique.
Yeah, it's unconventional, that's for sure. And I was raised in Ireland, but I started my career in Boston, in Massachusetts, and I was running with a track club there, and I was working with an advertising agency at the same time. And I actually had the opportunity to go and work with two technology startups. One failed, so I know failure, and one succeeded. And I was always very, very passionate about sport. I loved sport through my whole career. I got the opportunity to go and work for Sport Ireland in Ireland, and the CEO of that organization is a man called John Tracy, and John won an Olympic medal in 1984 in Los Angeles in the marathon, and he was an iconic figure in Ireland, and he was the CEO of Sport Ireland, and I had the opportunity to go and work for him as a high-performance manager without prior experience in sport management. And I just see that as a great stroke of luck for me. I think I interviewed very well, and I got the opportunity to go and work in sport in Ireland, and it was exceptional. And I worked there for 10 years, and through just some incredible athletes, some incredible coaches, the Team Ireland went from 0 medals in Athens in 2004 to 6 medals in London in 2012. And we played a part in that growth, but obviously the athletes and coaches were the ones that got the job done. But I had an incredible experience in Ireland, and I'm very proud of my work back there. I will say that I think the work that I did in Boston in the commercial and corporate space helped me a lot, and it has helped me through my career as I have moved from Ireland back to the US again to work for the Olympic Committee here. And those experiences that I had as a younger man have informed my work as I have progressed through the Olympic world and the Olympic family.
And it shows also what you said about John is that, great leaders identify talents, not eventually with specific skills in the right moment, but identify talents with abilities to grow. And it seems that's what happened to you. Identify the talent, and you grow in the field you didn't know about. I mean, everyone loves sports and wants to work a sport eventually, but being a high-performance director is highly different. So congrats for that. By the way, I don't know if today you would hire people just because of talent, of skills, potential skills and attitude, and not eventually the scientific skills.
So I think that's a great question, and I'm happy to answer it. Now, my view on that is really straightforward. I am more impressed by personality and perseverance and commitment than I am necessarily about a specific aspect of somebody's CV or resume. And I think my own personal experiences help inform that. And the people that I like to work with are people who are super committed to their work and are very, very willing to learn. Okay, learn the business, learn the ins and outs of how we operate, but bring a personality that is committed and passionate and eager to learn new things. that's what I brought, I think, at the beginning of my career in sport. And I guess we all have our own personal biases, but I think that's my personal bias, is that I like to be around talented individuals.
Yeah. So US Olympic Committee detected you from your Irish experience, I suppose. How was the process?
Yeah, the hardest interview process that I've ever been part of. So the selection was very, very rigorous, and I was hired by a gentleman called Kelly Skinner, and the process. There were case studies. I had to solve case studies. I had to do presentations to the sport performance team at the US Olympic Committee. I had to meet with senior leaders at the USOPC. And the challenge that I faced was I had an expectation of what the USOPC would be like. And what I encountered actually was a very humble, but very, very confident group of people. And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't obviously intimidated coming into this environment, because I was coming from a very small country. And what I was able to do, I think, and the reason I was able to get the job was I was able to tell the story of my work in Ireland in a clear, coherent way, I think. And that again was, and of course there were successes in Ireland that, you know, it's always good to talk about the successes, but also as well we spoke about the challenges and the failures that occurred in my career. And I think going into the interview process with humility, knowing that you were one of many people looking for that opportunity, I think was very, very important. And I've tried to maintain that, I guess, humility through my career, knowing that we're always challenged by other people. There are a lot of brilliant people in sport, and our team is challenged every day by other nations who are brilliant at sport. So we have to keep that perspective.
So I know you've been at the USOC, I would say, but USOPC would be more correct now, and it's a fantastic move, by the way. You've been there for a few years. USOPC works every day to promote sport and develop champions. But obviously, to accomplish this, it has grown into a very complex organization that handles everything from athlete services to sports competitions to marketing to fundraising, international relations, and so on. So what's your very specific role in that organization as VP Summer Sports?
Yeah, so you're right. It is a complicated business, and we serve a broad community of athletes across 35 plus national governing bodies of sport, winter and summer, Olympic and Paralympic. And we are unique. We do not have government funding to support our efforts. So the concept of fundraising is a very important part of our business. And it is the responsibility on everybody within the organization to support that fundraising effort. But if I was to simplify my work, I try to bring it down to the most simple statement possible, and that is ultimately for the Summer Olympic Games, my job is to help Team USA win the Olympic Games. And winning the Olympic Games is defined as winning overall medal count and gold medal count at the Olympic Games. So that's, if I was to put the statement of work, that's the simple statement. And then the way that I do that is we have obviously a number of resources available to us, like finance and medicine and sports science and technology and so forth. And we work with all of the primary constituents, like national governing bodies, coaches, athletes, to develop high performance plans. And our job is to invest as effectively as we can in those plans in the pursuit of winning the Olympic Games. So at the heart of it, my job really is to allocate resources as effectively as possible to ensure victory at the Olympic Games. And
that's interesting because, obviously the US is number one in total medals. For those who don't know, it's 2,523 medals, total history.
I didn't know that number. That's wow.
And almost 40% of them are gold medals.
Yeah.
So it's not silver. And, you know, as you say, you want the number one ranking in total medals and number one in golds. And it's what happened only for summer sports. This does not include winter sports. So number one country by far. But obviously that doesn't mean it's easy. You know, it should, for many people, it seems like, okay, it's the United States now, but it doesn't mean it's easy. That means the high performance system is quite efficient throughout the whole process, from kids to gold medalists. And I've read that 43% of US OPC resources are allocated to high performance. How do you allocate resources? What's your strategic plan?
So there's, from our perspective within sport performance, there are two guiding principles, I would say. Firstly, it is, and it's written into the broader strategic plan of the organization, but the first is competitive excellence. And every decision that we make should be directed towards the delivery of competitive excellence for our very best athletes. And then the second is of equal importance is athlete well-being. So ensuring that when we pursue competitive excellence, that it's done in a way that is allows the athletes to have a good physical and mental state of mind and well-being, because ultimately we have to find a balance between the two, competitive excellence and athlete well-being. So that's the starting point for us. We also, because we are, firstly, we have scarce resources. We don't have unlimited resources. We have scarce resources. And also because we're driven by that desire to win the Summer Olympic Games, our efforts are focused on those sports and athletes that can compete at the games and project onto the podium. And our job is as much about the process of ensuring that athletes deliver on their potential. And there's always conversation about process and outcomes. We're very much focused on the process of supporting athletes and ensuring that their expertise, their brilliance, their skills, their talent, that they are maximized in pursuit of their goals. So that's really at the heart of it. We try as much as possible to direct our resources to where we think the opportunities arise for us.
So you work with the athletes. The athletes are belonging to federations or sometimes NCAA. Well, we all know NCAA is the biggest global Olympic medalist provider. You know, it's more than 1,000 athletes competing on one Olympic. It's crazy. Yeah. From all around the world, not only US. And Team USA, 3/4 of them are incoming current or former NCAA athletes. So how do you work with different governing bodies, so federations or NCAA, to ensure the development of the athletes?
Yeah. So let's start with the NCAA. I think that's a very, very good place to start. And we are blessed in this country, in the US, with a incredibly robust and strong collegiate sport program. And it is a competitive advantage on the summer side of our work. It is a competitive advantage like no other. No other nation has the NCAA the way and a collegiate system that is structured in a way that allows success at the Olympic Games. So it is a really important piece of business for us that we are connected to the collegiate programs. We have a division, collegiate partnerships division within the USOPC, and their role is really twofold: is to ensure that the athletes are supported to the best of our ability through their NCAA careers, and that they transition then into the post-collegiate environment as effectively as possible. But also it's about celebrating the support that we get from colleges in the US. We recognize the value that they bring, and my colleagues in collegiate partnerships do an incredible job in ensuring that the work that is done in the NCAA is recognized as critical to our success at the Olympics.
But concretely, when do you start having an impact on the athletes as opposed to NCAA or federations?
Yeah. So I think probably a good example would be maybe track and field. Okay, so at the Olympic Games in Rio, there were track and field, our athletics won 32 medals. And if you think back to the pipeline of talent in the United States, there are over 1 million kids who compete in high school track and field. It's an incredible number. And so there is a natural pipeline that already exists. And then that number reduces as they go to college. And then that number reduces again as they come out of college. And then in turn, as we get closer to the pool of athletes we support in the Olympic Games, the Olympic team may be 120 plus track and field athletes. So you're going from, there's a pipeline of over 1 million high school kids all the way down to maybe 120 on the Olympic team. And our work really is directed towards about maybe 300 to 400 of those athletes that will go to the Olympic Games. So our work is very narrow, and it needs to be narrow because if we try to support everybody, eventually we support nobody because the resource becomes diluted. So we have to stay very focused and very much kind of in the performance lane. And it is the work of the national governing bodies then to build out the development programs to ensure the pipeline is strong.
And the pipeline is applied to all the Olympic sports. I ask that because, in some countries, like in Latin America, for example, the Olympic Committee or the ministries of sports, because most is public financed, they don't have the resources to promote everything. So one of the strategic questions is, do you focus on very few sports and make it well? Or, as you say, dilute everything and get no results? Yeah. Potentially, how do you work on prioritizing sports and athletes?
So my experience in Ireland is a good example of that, in that we were fortunate to receive government funding in support of Olympic and Paralympic sport, but we were required to narrow the focus. Originally, it was widespread resources going to a lot of athletes and sports, and part of my job was to narrow the focus so that we could go from 0 medals in Athens to 6 medals in London. And we focused on a range of sports, probably about 8 sports, I think. My recollection is correct. I narrowed it down with emphasis on equestrian and boxing and athletics and sports where we had a tradition of success and there was a fundamental structure in place that we could help elevate to that Olympic medal winning status. So my humble advice in those situations is that you do need to take the tough decisions, because if you don't, the dilution of resources will result in a dilution of performance.
Highly interesting. When we speak about high performance, we see that at every Olympics or World Championship, you got new records. Obviously, there's a technology impact. If you've got a better track and field, that helps, or better shoes if it's not technology doping, obviously. But organically, when it comes to the athletes, what do you think will impact the most the performance of the athlete in the future? Is it neuroscience? What are the new spaces to explore so that we can keep on growing the athletes?
Yeah, great question. My view on this is that it is easy to get distracted by everything that is new out there and lose sight of what is the fundamental basics for world-class performance, and that includes the health of the athlete, good training facilities, knowledgeable and expert coaches, and the delivery of strong science programs. And if those fundamentals are already in place, and in many situations they're not, but if the fundamentals are in place, then you can start looking to the next thing. And for us as an organization, we are always working on the fundamentals first. Okay, great coaches, great medicine, great facilities, ensuring that the athletes have access to all of those things first, and then we start thinking about what comes next. And in my work, I have the opportunity to oversee, and this is I really enjoy this part of my work. I get the opportunity to oversee our technology and innovation fund. We have developed a separate fund that we are using to impact performance through technology and innovation. And I think that clearly there's a lot that can be done in that space to support Olympic and Paralympic athletes. And we have made pretty good progress over the last couple of years in pursuing specific and targeted programs for NGBs that are directed around technology and innovation. And for us as a country, the United States is enormous. It's a huge country. And that was a challenge for me when I came here first. It was like, wow, how do you support all of these athletes in remote locations? And that is where technology, I think, can come into play for us as a team. We are very carefully stepping into the wearables space at the moment, and we're having conversations with some really incredible companies who are doing some incredible things in the wearable space. And part of it is it's twofold, really. Firstly, how do you stay connected and engage with athletes who are remote? So we are in Colorado Springs. Let's say we have an athlete in New York. How do we stay connected with them and understand the training load and the sleep patterns and the concerns, psychological concerns that an athlete may have in a remote location? So how do we solve that problem? So we're undertaking a lot of work in the wearable space and understanding how can we truly and effectively, not just say it, but actually affect performance through the delivery of a great wearable strategy. So I think wearables is important. We've also been doing some work on virtual reality in allowing athletes to immerse themselves into a particular environment and linking that then with our performance psychology team, dealing with performance anxiety and so forth. There's nothing necessarily new about that, but what it is it's a recognition that where we have the fundamentals in place, we can then go and start having conversations about the nice to haves, and that's the way we operate.
We're going to go back to your technology and innovation fund right after, but I remember I had a chat one day with Eddie Rees, the swimming coach from Texas University, a fantastic coach, more than 60 Olympic medals from his athletes. Yeah. By the way, I made a mistake because I mentioned the word luck when I spoke with him about athletes. Oh, yeah. And he looked at me straightforward saying, there's no luck.
Yeah, and Eddie will tell you that too. Yeah. He's not afraid to tell you.
Yeah, he's not afraid to tell me. And I guess he's right. I mean, if you get ready to win, and then you make the little things that makes you win. But so the point about him, and when we spoke about innovation and technology, and I asked him, how does it include this in his Olympic cycle process? And the question was very clear. I know what I'm doing. The 2 years of the cycle, I may try things. I may, if I'm very convinced it could work. After the first 2 years, I keep on safe. So if something new worked, I keep on using it. But I will not try anything new the next 2 years before, the last 2 years before the Olympics.
Yeah.
What do you think? When you think about innovation and technology, how do you frame it into a cycle?
Yeah. And Eddie is absolutely 100% correct. Like from our perspective, the final year of an Olympic Games cycle, we would not want to be doing anything that is disruptive to the preparation of the athlete. And ultimately any engagement we have with new technologies or new innovations that are applicable will only be done if it brings value to the athlete and it brings value to the coach. And that is the starting point for us, is there value? And if there's no value, don't do it. There's no point in doing it, because you're only doing it for the sake of saying that you have done something that you think is of value, but it's not to the athlete. So I would 100% support maybe 2 years. That's Eddie's preference. I mean, some may go, listen, I don't want anything in the next year, in the final year. But we will start and end with the athlete and the coach. We will not do anything that is counter to the needs and requirements that they have.
Mm. Having made some surveys, we've seen that the most important thing to the athlete is a coach. I don't know first if you agree with that, and second, how do you work with the coaches? Because at the end, there's the one who decides what the athlete is doing in terms of training and preparation. Am I correct?
Yeah, I agree, and I think ultimately the whole business the whole idea of sport is built on this concept of being part of something and being engaged in an activity that brings joy. And I think for our athletes, it doesn't matter if they are, I'm coaching at the high school. It doesn't matter if they're high school kids that I'm coaching, or if it's Katie Ledecky in the Olympic, preparing for the Olympic final. There should be an inherent joy in the work. And if the coach can bring that skill of communicating the joy and the passion and the expertise that they have, like Eddie Reese can do after so many years in the business. If you see Eddie on the pool deck, the energy, the commitment, the desire to help the athlete improve, the focus, it's exceptional. And that's after decades and decades and decades of coaching. So for me, the enthusiasm for my job comes from being able to engage with the best coaches in the world. And I think they are at the heart of the story. What I will say is that I think the athletes, like no athlete, no job. If we did, the athlete is at the center of the conversation, but the coach is the driver of the talent. I think to a certain extent, in that they're at the helm of the ship, and they have an enormous responsibility to deliver on the potential of the athlete at that Olympic level.
And how is the process of the relationship with the coaches?
Yep. So it depends. I mean, I now oversee all of the summer sports for the U.S. Olympic team. But when I started at the USOC at the time, I was working with swimming and track and field and 6 sports at the time, including swimming and track and field. And I had a very close engagement with the coaches at that time. And I've since moved to a different role, a higher role within the organization. But we have high-performance directors within the USOPC now, whose job it is to engage on a daily basis with the coaches to provide the support that they need. And it is central to our role. It is very, very important that we're connected with them, because the last thing that we want is to show up at an Olympic Games and for the coaches not to know who we are. We have failed if that happens. Okay, if there is a lack of connection between us as the leader of the U.S. Olympic effort, and our job is to help the teams win at the Olympic Games. If we are unknown to the coaches, we've failed. So that's our work, and unknown to the athletes, we have failed. So we need to be connected with them, not just 2 weeks out of every 4 years. We have to be connected with them every day out of 4 years. So that engagement is very important.
Yeah. Plus, you have your training facilities.
Yeah.
Obviously. All right. So if we come back to your technology and innovation fund, and I think it's quite unique for an Olympic and Paralympic committee what you've done. Can you let us know a bit more about that?
For sure. So we have. This actually starts from a very humble place, the Technology and Innovation Fund that has been built out. It starts from a humble place and a recognition that we had world-class sports medicine and sports science, and we were delivering excellent supports to the athletes in those areas. but we also recognized the fact that from a technology standpoint, we were behind other nations. Other nations were making bigger investments. Other nations were more directed towards performance. And other nations, their athletes were succeeding on the basis of strong investment from either government or, in certain cases, private entities. So a decision was taken within our organization that we needed to be take a more forthright position, I suppose. I won't use the word aggressive, but a more forthright position on this, and raise funds, go out and raise funds to build out a technology fund that would allow us to catch up with the competition. And we have a development team, and their job is to go out and source donors and source resources that we can apply in the performance space. And they have done an incredible job in being able to tap into a pool of resources and expertise in Silicon Valley that has been exceptional. And we now have a technology and innovation advisory board that contains some truly exceptional people, leaders in venture capital, guys like Mark Stevens, Jeff Yang, leaders in the commercial space. So Eddie Q, who is Senior Vice President at Apple, individuals that are just top of the food chain really in their business. And what we've been able to do is through their resources and their philanthropy, and also through their expertise and network, we've been able to build out a range of projects. We're over 35 projects now, I think, that have had a direct impact on NGBs and athletes. And that fund, even in the most difficult of times that we're going through right now, that fund continues to grow. So we recognize that we were not good in a particular space. We said we have to fix that, and there's an effort that's underway now for that to be resolved. And we're proud of that work. We're proud of it.
So 2 questions come to my mind. What is your storytelling to convince them? And second would be, you work on 35 projects. So I mean, I suppose they're very specific. Can you give us some examples?
Sure, yeah. So firstly, the storytelling is actually quite straightforward. Firstly, we have excellent people who know how to sell. Okay, we have colleagues who are superb at that. But the story, what they do, excuse me, what my colleagues do is, when the time is right, we are brought in as the performance expert, if you will, and we have a conversation with the potential donor, and with our donors from Silicon Valley. The opportunity that we have had is to talk about Team USA and talk about the idea that we have not succeeded in the past, and we need their help to be better in the future. And I think they like the idea of seeing behind the curtain of Team USA and understanding what's going on, but also that idea that their resources will have a direct impact on the outcomes of Team USA athletes. And the line between their money and a performance at the Olympic Games, it's very small. It's like they can be in the stadium and they can see a particular athlete succeed and know that my resources and expertise have helped this athlete succeed at the Olympic Games. And so it's a very powerful narrative, and they become part of our team, really, to be honest. And we are very, very fortunate to have these experts helping us. Some of the projects that we're doing, one of which actually played out pretty well in Rio in 2016, was using radar technology. So we were able to adapt radar technology that is used in golf. So when they track the drive, you see the white line and so forth. That technology has been adapted to support TrackMan, yeah, and another company, FlightScope, they're working on that as well. And that technology has been adapted for the throws in track and field, so javelin and discus and shot put. And what has changed is that we are now able to provide, using this technology, data points, real-time data points that the athlete would never have had before, like angle of release, speed of release, distance, and so forth, overlaid onto video. and it is an immediate feedback loop between the coach and the athlete. So the shot putter throws, they retrieve the implement, they come back, and they have a video of the throw with each of these data points that they would never have had before. And what that does then is that changes the dialogue between the coach and the athlete, because it's real-time information overlaid on video that allows for that teaching moment between the coach and the athlete.
Yeah, and it's data-driven, and and you can do it remotely as well.
Yeah. And if you're a shot putter, and let's say that you want to know, what does the world record shot put throw look like? We know what the angle of release is. We know what the speed of release is. And you can overlay that on the throw, and you can say, listen, if you want to be at that level, this is what it's got to be. And these are the interventions that coaching interventions that need to occur for that to happen.
Very good example. I'm a young, still bad golfer. I use TrackMan, and it's impressive also learning. Yeah. So if you do it smarter, on a better scale, applying it to many sports obviously is fantastic. So what I've also raised is that one of your strategic pillars is increase investment returns on sports program and assess Olympism programs. Very complex, because you may have the results during the Olympics, but you also mentioned that you focused on the process. So what are your steps, I don't know if you can speak about that, the steps to make sure you comply with certain metrics that show you're online with the goals that you have?
Yeah, and from my perspective, it's a relatively narrow lane that I am in. Okay, we want to help the athletes succeed and Team USA win. That's the ultimate metric for us as a sport performance team. But there are other things in that path or that journey for the athlete to the Olympic Games. Their experience not only do we want them to fulfill their potential, but we want them to have a games experience that stays with them for the rest of their life. That it is a truly unique and worthy endeavor that they have pursued to get to that level. And we feel an enormous responsibility to the athletes to ensure that that games time experience is the very best it can be. So that is another area. So not only the performance on the field of play, but the preparation that goes to support, not only in logistics and training camps and so forth, not just field of play, but those areas as well. So that's a very important aspect of it. I would also say as well that because of the range of our organization, there are a number of community programs that are in place as well that allow the idea of the Olympic Games and Paralympic Games to be embedded into the community here. In Colorado Springs, where I am right now, there are a number of Olympic and Paralympic community programs that are very, very important to us because it expands and delivers the Olympic spirit and Paralympic spirit to a much broader community. So while I personally have a narrow lane, my colleagues do an incredible job of being able to express what Olympism is, and they are measured on that, So I am somewhat narrow, but my colleagues are much broader.
That leads to a question of the new generations. I mean, if you want to be, everything starts with a dream. You have the dream as a person, you want to become an Olympic medalist because you've seen it on TV, because you've met an athlete once, very different reasons. We've also seen that with COVID, youth sports is going down. Many private or public organizations had to shut up. Access to sports, obviously, down. Resources down. Interest down. When interest is going down, it also switches to some other, interests, whether it's video games or watching movies or, a lot of digital world, I would say. So do you think it is something, I don't know if scary is a word, but that can put in danger the Olympic dream and the ability to have this pyramid with 1 million, for example, kids in high school in track and field?
I'm an optimist at heart. Okay, that's the first statement. So my optimism has not been diminished about the impact and value of sport over the last number of months. I think that one of the things that will help us emerge from the pandemic and the crisis will be the idea of sport and the idea of fun competition and the idea of engagement with friends around a shared activity. And I am optimistic around that. And the Olympic Games is at the very, very top. It's at the pinnacle. And our job is to support that idea and support the athletes that compete there. But I am optimistic that the concept of sport has not diminished. I would actually say that I think certainly for a generation of younger kids that there is a risk for sure. There's no doubt about it. But I think when the opportunities reopen again, I think there'll be a renewed excitement for sport. And I choose to be optimistic about it. I choose I'm coaching at my son's high school right now within the public health guidelines, of course. But we are coaching, and I'm just getting enormous fun from seeing kids enjoy practice and kids showing up and having fun around practice. And I think that it is worrisome, but I choose to be optimistic, and I choose to make a decision to impact locally where I can. That's all I can do. And then to a certain extent, I try to impact globally through our work, through the Olympic movement. But for me, I have a personal responsibility to help my son's team. That's what I do. And I think if it's not for me to say whether that's for good or for bad, but I get enjoyment from it. And I think there's some benefit that comes to the kids from it.
I love your approach. Last week we spoke with the owner of a big Mexican football team, Chivas, and we spoke about the digital world, its complexity, and all the social media and connection without real connections, and we mentioned what's key to him: community programs. Go back to basics. Community programs. Where am I? I'm in Guadalajara, for example. I need to impact locally and add value to people locally. If I don't do that, I will lose them. If I do that, we're going to do something great together.
Yeah.
So I think it's key for the future of sport, community programs everywhere, people doing something. Yeah. Well, but it's complex still. Coming back to COVID situation, talking with you prior to that conversation, we've mentioned that, COVID has an impact on financial resources. Obviously, it has an impact on athletes' preparation, not speaking about the postponement of Tokyo 2020 to 2021 summer. What did it mean for you in your organization? How do you adapt?
Yeah. So I would offer, Arno, that it's difficult for us. It's no different to any other organization. We have needed to make changes in our organization to adapt to the new environment. And our leadership, our CEO, Sarah Hirschland, has done a really great job of setting the tone and setting us in a direction that will allow us to work our way forward and have a sustainable business model moving forward. So there are things that have changed within our organization, led by Sarah and other colleagues, that have put us in a position where we can respond to the COVID crisis. I think we need to recognize that ultimately the real pain in the context of Tokyo is felt by the athletes. I just work in a support role for those athletes. Okay, so it's disappointing for me. Clearly, I'm disappointed. But these athletes, they were going to go onto the field of play in Tokyo in 2020, and some of them may not get that opportunity again. So there's almost, I'm sure, a grieving process going on within the athlete community that we need to be respectful of. And we will support them to the very best of our ability as they work through that. What we have noticed as an organization is that from a specific performance standpoint, that process of detraining and then retraining is a very, very critical phase of our work now. And we need to be mindful of how can we support athletes and coaches as they come out of that detraining phase into the retraining phase in a way that is performance focused and does not negatively impact health and wellness of the athlete, and ensures that they can optimize their performance next year. So that's a challenge for us that we're working through right now with all of the sports. Also at a global level, the uncertainty around the international calendar can cause concerns as well. And from our perspective, selection onto Team USA becomes more complicated because selection procedures need to change in the context of the changing competition calendar. So many challenges. But again, I go back to the fact I'm an optimist at heart, and I look at Tokyo next year, and I see that as has the potential to be one of the greatest sporting moments ever. And my job is to help make that happen, is to help our team be ready to take full advantage of that experience. And it was, I feel that responsibility more than anything else is that responsibility to ensure athletes are ready to go next year, and we give them the opportunity to fulfill their potential in just a phenomenal environment. And our colleagues in Tokyo have done a superb job in working their way through this. This is enormously difficult, and I have enormous respect for the work that they've done.
Yeah, I guess everyone needs these Olympics and a celebration of humanity, not only for athletes, but human rights, fight against racism. There's kind of right now a need for a common ground where everyone celebrates and get together in a very positive way. But obviously, so limited resources and sometimes resources going down because of the situation, that implies that you have to become very, like a startup, very creative.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
More than ever. So two things I would say. Firstly, we don't get government funding. Okay, zero government funding. It's written into legislation that we do not get government funding, and our role is to utilize the brand of the Olympics to be able to sell that brand and raise funds to support the Olympic and Paralympic program. And we're challenged every day to be, to a certain extent, entrepreneurs. We have to find different ways of supporting our sales and development colleagues to sell the idea of the Olympics and the idea of Team USA. And this was the big transition for me coming from Ireland to the US, was the idea that every single person that works for Team USA and for the USOPC has a responsibility to represent that brand so that we can continue to develop and build the resources needed to support the programs. So that we need to be entrepreneurial in the true sense of the word, in that we are selling the idea of what we do. And then the second thing, I think, is that in the current environment, more than ever, with scarce resources and difficult challenges, creativity is at the heart of the next step. Like, if we're not creative in how we utilize our resources, we're not creative in how we work with athletes and coaches and national governing bodies, we will fail. So I feel strongly that creativity and entrepreneurial skill is at the heart of our work now. For the next 15 months to Tokyo, those are critical to our success.
Permanent adaptation.
Yes.
Yeah. Two questions that are a bit aside, I would say, but I'd love to get your opinion. One goes with, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Sport, we all know, is facing many challenges globally, and more than anything, has the power to positively impact people's life. The voice of the athletes is massive.
Yeah.
So inside the USOPC, how do you work? How important is sustainability?
Yep. So I would offer that my colleagues in international relations do a phenomenal job working with the IOC in delivering against the broader Agenda 2020 goals that have been laid out by the IOC. From our perspective, again, I suppose it is like the idea of sport as a whole, is that you have to act locally. And for our training centers, a lot of work has been done to, as much as possible, make them a sustainable environment. And our athletes demand it. You know, they ask the question. They want to make sure, because the generation of athletes coming through now, it is a very, very important topic for them. So as much as possible, we have colleagues in international relations who engage with the IOC on the broader world global goals. But also we must act locally, and we must be in a position to ensure that our training centers, not only the communities that we serve, but the actual physical locations themselves are as sustainable as possible. So similar to coaching at the high school, you have to impact yourself. You have to take responsibility yourself in the environment that you're in.
Another debate now is, and I guess it has been for years, but it's NCAA athletes getting money. You have the right to have a joker if you don't want to answer that, because it's a tough one. But you know, what would be the correct path, and is it good for NCAA, good for the sport as a whole, for the NCAA athletes to get paid? What's your opinion on that?
So I'm going to use my joker. Thanks. But I will say what we're doing. I'm not going to answer the question whether it's good or bad, because it's not appropriate for me to do that. What I will say, though, is my colleagues in collegiate partnerships and us as an organization and leadership in our organization recognize that the college system, the NCAA system, is vital to our success. So my colleagues in the collegiate partnerships division, they are working very closely with the NCAA leadership to enable legislation that allows athletes to have access to the resources they need to succeed. Okay, and that's the way I would answer that, is that we're taking ownership for the areas that we can own. And that is that we want to make sure that if they get access, if they have training costs, or they need adjusted academic schedules, or they need access to the college coach, that those things, those very precise targeted efforts, allow the athlete to succeed. And we have enormous respect for the work that is being done in the collegiate system. It is, as I've said, I mean, it is, there's no secret. It is a huge advantage that we have. So we need to support that as much as possible. And that's what we do. And we want to make sure that where we can influence, we are influencing, and that is happening.
Okay, good answer. Now we're going to go to a series of very quick questions, very much inspired by James Lipton from Inside Actor Studio. I don't know if you've seen that show.
Yeah, loved it.
Yeah, they always end up with some questions. So I took some of them and I added some. Meanwhile, guys in the audience, feel free again to send your questions as a Q&A section. More than the chat section, please, the Q&A. And right after that, we'll go to the questions. So, what is your favorite word?
My favorite word?
Yeah.
Resilience.
Resilience. What is your least favorite word?
Can't.
Never accept a no. What turns you on?
Winning.
What turns you off?
Losing. I know what that feels like, and it's not good.
What is your favorite? Who is your favorite athlete?
Can I have two?
Yeah.
Okay, I have two. One is John Tracy, because he inspired me to really get into running, and he won the Olympic silver medal in LA in '84. and he became my boss for 10 years, and he has transformed sport in Ireland. And so he made that transition from being an athlete to a great administrator really well, and that isn't an easy transition. He did really well, and the race, super race, and the best athlete I've ever seen, and I've seen him race when I was very young, was Sebastian Coe.
Your best moment? So you said two.
Yeah, Sebastian Coe and John Trey.
John and Sebastian Coe. All right. Yeah. Your best moment in the Olympics?
I have two. One is Katie Taylor winning the Olympic gold medal in London in 2012 for Ireland. What a wonderful person, an exceptionally talented woman. And she has been at the vanguard of women's boxing. She made women's boxing happen in the Olympic Games, and she had done it for years. And she was exceptional that day. That's one. And as an athletics fan, probably the men's 1500 meter final in Rio in 2016. Matthew Centrowitz winning the gold medal for Team USA. It was wonderful.
Your worst moment in the Olympics?
Leaving Athens after just 1 year in the job, and Team Ireland had 0 medals, and realizing how difficult the job was. It's really, that was wonderful, great athletes, but not a great outcome. It was tough.
What song do you like the most in a stadium?
Wow. I don't know. I have to think about that.
All right. So I won't go into the next one. What is your, apart from your work, what is your favorite occupation?
I like going out for dinner with my wife, and I also like coaching athletics. We talked about impacting at the local level. I like coaching at the local level.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
If I was to do anything again, I'd revisit the technology startup world. Maybe I'm too old for that now.
Never too old.
But it was that was an exciting time. That was like sport back in the like 2000 year, let's say 2000, 2001, just before the tech bubble burst. That was a very exciting time, trying to access funding, finance, venture capital. That was fun. And we had failure and we had success. It's like sport.
Next one is tricky. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Not bad. You did okay.
All right. So thank you very much. Thank you, Finn, for your time.
No problem.
We're going to go now to the question and answers, which I haven't seen yet. So one question from Mariana Lekanda. Do you constantly scout startups to help on the sports performance process? How do you decide the best solution provider to be part of the resources you have?
Yeah, so one of the great values we get from our Technology and Innovation Advisory Board is the expertise on that group and the network that they have. So they have been able to introduce us. So somebody like Eddie Q, who was responsible for iTunes and developing the iPhone and all of that work, that development work that he has done, his network is the best in the world. So what we're able to do is leverage the network that our expert colleagues have been able to open for us. So that's the way that we, for the most part, operate.
So you speak with them, express your needs, and that will help you source the best people and solutions.
Yes.
Okay. Question from Dan Peterson. I would love to hear both of your opinions on esports as part of Paris 24. Plus, in the post-COVID world, and given the immense popularity of esports, is this a new normal of sport? Does it open up Olympic dreams to those who are not physically gifted?
I think the answer is yes to both. but it won't be my decision clearly. But I think that esports is on clearly on an enormous growth path, and I think that the IOC has actually shown itself flexible to the idea of new sports coming onto the Olympic program. So we see it for Paris with surfing and skateboarding and sport climbing. These are sports that 30 years ago we'd never have contemplated coming in to the Olympic program. And I think that it in my lifetime, well, I don't know, who knows, but I do think that esports as an idea and as a concept is having its day and will continue to have its day.
All right. Lorena Martin, from detraining going back to athletes retraining, can you give a specific example of a progression in any sport of your choice?
Yeah. So I don't want to. Our experts. So the way that this works, let me answer it like this: the way that this works is that we bring our experts together. So nutrition, psychology, physiology, strength and conditioning. And what they will do is they will work with each of the sports and build out a plan that is appropriate to the timeline for retraining. So part of our work has been to ensure that in the COVID world that we stay connected to the athletes. So there's clearly remote training that is going on. For swimming, the work will be different to the work with track and field or with weightlifting. It will be different in each of the sports. But what we are doing is that there is a unique plan being established for each of the sports so that it is appropriate to the needs of the athlete, and we utilize all of the available resources that we have. So science, specifically science and medicine, to ensure that that happens. So and right now we have protocols in place for those sports, for those sports, and our engagement will continue.
All right. A question from Angel Ruiz. When it comes to money allocation in high performance, in percentages, how do you spread? I don't know if you can give example, coaches, medicine, competition, scouting, he mentions, but maybe you can let us know a bit how you allocate the resources based on skills.
So I think the one thing that works to our advantage is that we do not have any one template. We do not have a template. What we have is a process that is unique to each sport. And we understand that the process for equestrian is a different process for swimming, okay? So our support of a dressage program is different to our support for Eddie Reese, let's say. It will be different in those situations. So what we do is the process we follow is we look for a performance plan from each of the sports that outlines in a quadrennial what their plans are to support the athletes and coaches. The answer to the question is that we have specific areas that we look for, specific pillars, performance pillars that we work towards, but it will be different for each sport because the needs of the sport will be unique.
So there's not one specific solution.
No.
Question from Diego Lascano. How will you engage young kids? I will reframe. How would you engage young kids on becoming world-class athletes after a pandemic?
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to what we discussed earlier, which is that you have to act locally. You have to, if you're truly passionate about sport, being engaged within your community and engaging in community programs, I think is critical. I think at the very highest level, so we go from the community level to the Olympic Games, at the very highest level, the motivation is intrinsic for those athletes. We just need to ensure we have the supports around them and their coaches to ensure that they succeed. But for young, talented athletes, ensuring the pathway is robust and that they know what it takes to become an Olympian and telling them what it takes to become an Olympian. If they have the talent and they have the passion and they have the commitment, then follow the pathway.
Mm-hmm. Question from Derek Covington. How are you preparing differently for Tokyo as compared to Rio?
Yeah. So I think a couple of things that we're very precisely focused on. Firstly, we're focused on now on training load and ensuring that the process of retraining is one that is gradual and appropriate to the athlete and the sport. So that's a nuance that has changed for us. The second is that sleep and the idea of the final 30 days for the athlete and sleep monitoring and understanding what good sleep patterns look like as they go from the US to Japan is a very important piece of business for us. We have to ensure that they are that our athletes are as informed as possible when it comes to the process of sleeping well and recovering well. And then actual travel, the process of travel for athletes. And again, I go back to the fundamentals, the basics. We need to make sure that these are in place first. So travel, how do you travel well as an athlete going to an Olympic Games? And then finally, additional, which is different. So if we go back to travel, the time zone change to Rio for us was very straightforward. It was a couple of hours, nothing. For Tokyo, it is completely different. Also, heat and humidity is a major aspect of our work, and ensuring athletes are prepared for the likely heat and humidity that will come in Tokyo. And we're putting together individual plans for athletes and sports to prepare for that.
Mm. It's interesting what the thinkings of the NBA teams when it comes to sleep. Obviously, they don't have too much of a jet lag, even if they do, by the way. It can go up to 4 hours, if I'm correct, which is not little. But yeah, in a normal league, not Olympics, but normal league, do you want to fly them right after or get them to sleep and fly them after? Sleeping, if I understand well, is key to performance, right?
Yes, for sure. And it is, I mean, the process of recovery for athletes is as important as the process of training. And sleep is integral to recovery.
Yeah. Question from Lauren Emion, if I'm correct. One word for the Paris 2014.
One word for
the Paris 2014.
Oh, one word?
Yeah.
Prepared.
Prepared. Cool. Lauren, get prepared. All right. All good. Thank you all. Thank you, Finn. We will keep on with our SiS Masters and SiS Masterclass. Tomorrow we will speak with Mauricio Pedrosa from ESPN. He's a growing talent, moved from Mexico to the US. We're going to speak about the changes, the transformation of storytelling in sport. Different topic, but very much related to how you bring the passion of sports to people. So thank you, Finn, again. Let's stay all connected and keep safe. All the best to your family and to your friends. And
thank you, Arno. Okay. The best of luck to everybody. Thank you so much, Arno.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.